So you've been involved in immigration policy for a long time in the public and private sector. How have the politics of immigration reform changed since the time that you were at the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I mean, I would say even going back, my career's goes back to the late 1990s. So I've been doing this quite a long time. I think, back in 1990, and I think frankly, through the first part, at least, of the Obama administration, I would say that immigration was a bipartisan issue. You had immigration supporters in, I would say, the pro-business wing of the Republican Party, the free market wing, who understood that immigrants could bring innovation and economic benefit to the country. You had Democrats who supported immigration, usually from sort of a diversity, civil rights perspective, but you also had opposition in both parties. You had, I think, there's always been a little bit of a nativist wing to the Republican Party, people who were skeptical of immigration and how it might change the country. And on the Democratic side, the labor movement, which was strongly allied with the Democratic Party, had concerns about the impact of immigrants to native-born workers on jobs or wages. So, for most of my time working on immigration, the strategy was always to build bipartisan support, essentially out from the middle. I think that started to change in the second part of the Obama administration, or his second term. He pushed very hard for comprehensive immigration reform in 2013. That passed in the Senate with a strong showing, 68 votes, even though Democrats were in charge, but it got a significant number of Republicans. But the Republican House, then led by Speaker John Boehner, was not able to get consensus among the Republicans to bring up the legislation or any immigration legislation, and it died. And that was really the last time that the idea of a big comprehensive immigration reform package was considered in Congress. And then I think the next major shift came after President Obama created the DACA program. Congress wasn't able to agree on a path to citizenship for the so-called Dreamers, the immigrants that were brought.
Could you just define DACA?
Sure, I'll get there. Yeah,
Okay.
the DACA program was the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And that was an executive action that the Obama administration took that granted a reprieve from deportation and work authorization to some of those children who were brought to the United States, or immigrants who were brought to the United States as children. In order to qualify, they had to be over 17 to get DACA. But that program caused some divisions. I think particularly Republicans felt that it was a little bit of executive branch overreach, while many, many Democrats supported what he was trying to do, since Congress wasn't able to pass legislation. And then, of course, President Trump began his campaign in 2016 by calling for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, talked about immigrants in strongly negative terms, and throughout his tenure, did a lot of things by executive action to restrict and curtail immigration to the United States. And so immigration has been much more of a partisan issue. I think the response to many of President Trump's more restrictive immigration measures among Democrats was to essentially bring their parties much more strongly together in favor of immigration, and particularly in favor of support for legalization for many immigrants. So, where we stand today is, I think that the issue is more partisan than it has been, at least in my career to date. That's not to say that there's not bipartisanship out there and support that can be grown. But I think part of the issue is that for both parties, the issue has taken on much more of an electoral significance. They use it to motivate their party's bases to hopefully get them out to vote. And as we have seen with other issues that are base motivating issues, the impetus to reach across the aisle to solve those issues is diminished when you believe that keeping the issue alive gains you an advantage in getting reelected or get control of Congress.